Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome back to our watch club for Marvel Television's Agatha All Along. Relax, baby. We're cool. Welcome back to Watch Club. My name is Nate, and this is our Witch Club for Agatha All Along, Episode 7, Death's Hand in Mine, directed by Jack Schaefer. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Watch Club, our weekly review series, kind of like a book club, but it's way better. Keep in mind, we will be going into full spoilers for this series and the MCU in general, so if you haven't watched this week's episode yet, be sure to do so, and then come right back in a snap. Now, before we all... Six of Wands... Sorry, where was I? Let me introduce you to my lovely coven joining me this evening. First up, he's a journeyman journalist whose bad juju will put a jinx on you. He's Justin, the jack-o'-lantern loathing Lawrence.
If ever we were going to get like a lost episode in the MCU, this was it. This was the Desmond Hume episode that just gave us all of the lovely time slips. It was so lovely. It was absolute
so
perfection.
It was so good. I thought you were going to start singing the Time in the Bottle song. I thought that's what you were going for just now.
No.
I don't know.
No.
If I'm... Okay, well, listen, she's back from the dead. She's my aura from another Mara. She's Megan, the magical, mystical Maximoff Morning, charm-chanting Chambers.
Certainly a magical episode. Holy
Absolutely.
moly. And I'm feeling magical more so than I was earlier this week.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Yes, glad to see you're back from the dead. You're doing well. But listen, death did not come for this individual. She's finally back out of the oven and back into our coven. She's the Greek witch, Alyssa, the auspicious, ambitious, yet vicious and delicious, blood moon brewing Balistreri. How you doing? How you feeling?
Hours pass and I walk between them. The stars align, but not all truths are ready to be spoken. Time listens, and so do I. Listen, if you wanted a straight answer, ask a straight lady.
Hey! That was like, as soon as that line popped off, I was just like, yep. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So funny. I laughed out loud.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to our Witch Club. Welcome back to The Road. How are you doing this fine evening?
I am doing fantastic. I am so excited to be back. Thank you so much for having me again. I've been cooking in my cauldron, and I can't wait to talk about, what went down in this wonderful episode.
Yeah, things are bubbling back there. You can see there's some bubbly bubbles. I think my favorite part of this episode has to be the costumes. Was definitely one of my favorite parts. Before we jump in, I want to talk about this episode because there's so much to talk about, and it's like phenomenal. But I do want to quickly ask: have any of you ever dressed up as a witch for Halloween? Justin, I'm looking at you. I know maybe,
No,
once.
Never have.
No.
No.
Megan,
Have you?
Alyssa.
I definitely did.
Yeah.
You did?
Yes, I have a picture. I've asked my mom for it, so we'll see if we get it. But I was a witch when I was about 5 or 6, and I was just like a basic bitch witch. I was just like a little black hat, little long black sleeves. But I distinctly remember that Halloween, we went trick-or-treating, and my dad, who's notoriously always wore a mustache, shaved his mustache and dressed as a clown. And he had clown makeup on. So that's distinctly just
terrifying.
Lives in my memory. Scary, yeah, because I don't remember him without the mustache at all. I only remember him clean shaven
as a clown.
As a clown. So yeah, shout outs to Joe.
Terrifying. Yeah, I never dressed as a witch. There may be one year that I looked a little bit like Lilia does in this episode.
Okay.
So I was in that sort of an outfit, but there was one year I had a similar situation to Alyssa that my dad freaked me out. My mom was dressed as a witch. Again, a basic bitch witch that Lilia would hate. But my dad was a vampire, and there's family photos of us, of my parents dressed up to go to a costume party, I guess, or a Halloween party, and my brother and I just in like normal clothes, and you can tell I had been crying.
Oh no!
So
were you
funny,
scared
like
of him?
super puffy. Yeah, it freaked me out because he was like full white makeup face with like blood dripping down his mouth, and and had the fangs and everything. His hair gelled back.
It's awesome.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I know.
Made it to the part. How about
My
you, Nate?
parents
Have
went
you
all
ever
out.
dressed? Have you dressed as a witch before?
I have actually for Halloween, but not really. No.
Oh.
I mean,
I was like, I need
dressed.
this photo.
Listen. I dressed as a space wizard, right? That's kind of a witch, and it was a Sith. I was a dark robe.
No,
so
that's
they're kind of witches, right?
I love that you tried to say a Sith was a space wizard.
Yeah, exactly. You asked witches, not Jedi, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So
I was gonna say,
No,
is that
no.
another one of your time jumps where you're thinking about the future?
Maybe that was it. Maybe I was just gapping out, and maybe that's what actually happened. Listen, I do not want to gap out any more on in terms of the timing to get to this episode, because it was so good. It was absolutely outstanding. I'm excited to talk about it. Let's get into it. Episode 7, Death's Hand in Mine, directed by Jack Schaefer. Lilia Calderou gasps, and we slowly move away to reveal her fully in a pink dress, looking like Glinda the Good Witch, while falling in a dark void. Then we get back to Agatha and Billy, who are still walking towards the next trial, and Agatha can feel Billy trying to read her thoughts, even though he denies it. He attempts to ask his questions then out loud. He asks about Rio, and she responds with, "Not that question." He then says he'll get what he wants at the end of the road, and that Wanda is not his mom. He has a mom. He then asks if Wanda Maximoff is really dead, and Agatha says yes, no, maybe. He asks her if she saw a body and if anyone else did, and she says, yes, I did. It's hard to say. Followed by saying, hey, if you want straight answers, ask a straight lady, as quoted by Alyssa. Then they see a castle in front of them, and Agatha, attempts to describe their experience as a success, saying they're alive, and Billy questions if she's ever actually walked the road before. So let's dive into some of these opening moments here, and I want to throw it to Alyssa first. What did you think of Billy's animosity towards the idea that Agatha sees Wanda Maximoff as his mother?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely understand why he thinks that. I think as the viewer, we kind of project onto characters a lot. I know I do that all the time. And we as the viewer want him to also want to know and want to be with Wanda. But he doesn't understand the connection, the risk, like the passion that it took for her to create him. So all he knows is that he has a twin, and, you know, his mother, who has raised him for the last 3 years, is Rebecca, and she took care of him. There's nothing outside of that relationship that he is kind of pulled towards, or kind of, you know, is like a missing piece inside of him. He connects that to his brother that he no longer has. Something in the comics as well is it happens more often, I think more recently, where he doesn't really call Wanda his mom. Like if he's talking about Wanda, he's talking about like the Scarlet Witch or Wanda Maximoff. He even quotes when he's speaking to Teddy Altman, the Hulkling, in one of the Young Avengers comics. He says, what do I call her? The Scarlet Mom? And like, what is he supposed to call her? Right. So it makes a lot of sense. And I can tell, you know, why he feels that way as well towards Agatha, because she's been kind of shifty about, you know, her descriptors. She's very vague. And there's this moment when, you know, he says, I don't even know if you've walked the road at all. And she kind of just like shakes her head in disbelief, or kind of has to shake herself out of a thought that she's having. So I think he's right. I don't think she's ever been on the road before. She's always very confused.
I agree with you there. I've got an idea behind that. But I think in terms of him and not really seeing Wanda as his mom, you're absolutely right with the whole like us projecting ourselves. I mean, last week we were blown away by the revelation that's like, wait, he wants Tommy? How could he not want Wanda? What the heck?
Yeah. But also, like, of course.
Of course. And I think the other thing, too, is, like you said, Alyssa, like, he's connected with Rebecca so much. Like, with Rebecca Kaplan, she's probably the woman that, you know, I'm going to make an assumption that maybe he came out to his parents, right? So maybe she helped him through that experience. And when you have, you know, those, you know, struggles in your life, it's like those are the people that are going to be the people that you want to be your family. And so, yeah, it's just interesting to sort of see that that element of a disconnect between a character. And I think this show does such a good job at disconnecting us from characters when it needs to, but also really connecting us to certain characters like Lilia in this episode. Yeah,
I feel like it's also just, it's more of a reflection too of the question that he asks later too, like, am I William or am I Billy? Right. And I think, you know, obviously, as you guys have both said, like, his relationship for the last 3 years has been with Rebecca. So Rebecca has been the only mother he probably collectively knows, because he doesn't have any of his memories from the past. He has like loose memories of it, I guess. He understands what might have happened to him, but he is kind of like getting like outside information about what exactly happened. So he's kind of piecing it all together. So even though he might be 16 or whatever, and he was 13, he's kind of like really young, right? In the concept of like actually having a life, because he's a totally new spirit, because he hasn't retained any memories of Williams, right? And he has no memories of Billy. So, you know, who is he, right? And
right.
I think that's the biggest question he has to kind of solve.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think that, like, the only memory that he really has from being Billy was the moment that he just screamed his brother's name when he like woke up in this new body. So that's the only thing he can cling on to. And then in the last 3 years since becoming William, he's, like you said, Justin, learning from the people around him, and they're going to only tell him what they know about this anomaly that happened. And then if he's ever even in Westview, excuse me, can he learn from those people? And none of them want to talk about Wanda. So she's kind of this, like, you know, negative character in his head, which is why I think he has the reaction he does when Agatha's like, don't you miss your mom? He's like, she's not my mother. Like, he doesn't want to be associated with this woman that.
And that has probably taken part. Like, I would imagine the events of Doctor Strange, like, people know about it.
Oh,
right?
I would think so. In some capacity. Yeah.
Yeah, in some capacity, right? So I wonder if, you know, she was kind of villainized and seen as a villain across, and he doesn't understand how he could be related to her and stuff. I don't know. Yeah. There is that, because there's all that time period that's gone on where she was around and just couldn't find him, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think the other element to this too of, has Agatha traveled down the witch's road before? I fully agree with you, Alyssa. I don't think that she has necessarily. I think this moment is foreshadowing that there is no witch's road. That there is no specifically one witch's road, right? It's different depending on who's traveling it. So even if Agatha did, quote unquote, travel down the witch's road, that was her witch's road, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't have looked like what they're seeing now.
Correct. Whereas I think this is specifically Billy's, along with the other witches that they've brought with them on this coven, and not necessarily Agatha's same experience. I do want to call out an Easter egg that I heard, an audible Easter egg. I love soundtrack music Easter eggs. And so the fact that when they're talking about Wanda being dead, maybe, who knows, which is crazy too, the fact that they're also just talking about that.
Rude.
Right? Yeah. But you can hear the WandaVision end credits music as they're talking about it.
Oh,
and
really?
It's so cool. And I had to go back and like jump all the way back to WandaVision and check it out. And it's absolutely there.
Look at
and
us go.
I have a feeling they've done it before in this series as well, potentially. And maybe I didn't pick up on it, but I definitely heard it this time. And they don't miss with their attention to detail in this show. And it's so cool. It's so dope. Okay, let's keep going here. Agatha and Billy enter through the castle doors in one of like the coolest cinematic transitions that they do in this. There's like two really cool ones in this episode. And we see them now in new outfits, with Agatha dressed as the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz, and Billy with his high cheekbones proudly dressed as Maleficent from, and I'm trying to do like the high cheekbone movement thing that he did. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. Billy picks up a deck of tarot cards and the trial begins. He draws the chariot and places it, and a sword falls. Then he draws the Seven of Swords reversed, and another sword falls. And Agatha, like, she doesn't believe that, these tarot cards actually work or do anything. She grabs the whole deck and starts slamming them down on the table, laughing maniacally as more swords continue to fall. One falls right where Billy was sitting, and then as they argue, the ceiling of swords begins to descend upon them. So let's dive into these outfits. Again, I had mentioned earlier that I love the costumes in this episode. Megan, what did you think of these outfits?
Oh my God, I mean, perfect choices, first of all. I love that we didn't get, because all of us were kind of assuming that we were going to get a Wizard of Oz type episode. I like that, Disney did what Disney does, and they're like, hey, we have, the availability of these properties. Let's use what we can use. So they did a really great job representing witches that we've seen in Disney capacity. I think that Agatha was perfect as Elphaba. Somebody had to be green, and I'm glad that it was her. And Billy with the makeup and the glamour of Maleficent was perfect. I'm interested to see like maybe who Alice would have been. It would have been fun to see her in something.
Oh yeah.
Like which would she
which
sounded like I stuttered, but
it
which
sounded like
would
you
she
were
have
talking
been?
about one of the prediction segments that I almost went with for this watch club. But no, yes, which
Yeah, I
yeah.
really liked it. I liked what they did here.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that this is like a really beautiful trial. I really, looked into a lot of what it could mean, why they were kind of assigned these witches. So I loved, first of all, that Jen was the evil witch who was really ugly.
Yeah.
From Snow White.
She's not the fairest of them all.
No, she was not. And the evil witch kind of represents like vanity and obsession with beauty. And Jen has all these like skincare products and like manufactures the idea of staying young forever. Maleficent was a little bit more complex because there's a bunch of different tellings of, Maleficent. There's her own movie, and then there's Sleeping Beauty, but it's kind of the complexity of good and evil, as well as like revenge and betrayal as well. Like the, being betrayed by someone you love. That could be, maybe Agatha betrayed Billy by killing someone that he cares for. There's a lot to dig into there, and I'm kind of at the surface of that currently. Elphaba is also complex because there's the Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch, and there's also Elphaba from Wicked, like the musical. And the Wicked Witch kind of symbolizes like obsession and vengeance, or like judgment. And I think that kind of reflects how Agatha felt when, her own coven kind of turned the tables on her, and they keep calling her evil, and her mother hates her and wishes she was dead. But that's not who she is. She's, she has moral ambiguity, but she's looking to be good. And that's, something to see how that goes in the future. That's going to pair into my prediction for sure.
Oh.
And Glinda as well is, she's good in both Wicked as well as the Wizard of Oz. But she's seen as, of course, goodness and light, but also as guidance and mentorship. And Lilia is the oldest of all of them. And she's the one that, ends up solving this. So
And has kind of been their guide without really knowing that she was.
Without realizing it.
Exactly.
Huh.
So I thought that was just a really fantastic way to pair in existing witch lore, and rather than make it look like they're wearing costumes just because, they have purpose, and it's all connected. It's like Jack Schaefer really knows how to tie it all together.
It's all about the details.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack Schaefer is such a fan of cinema based on, some of the answers that she gave in your interview with her, Justin. And you can see that her and the writing team here are clearly pulling in all those specific things that you mentioned, Alyssa, but I think also the idea that these characters have become, through pop culture, have become to be known as both villains and anti-heroes, right? In their own right. Yeah, they're both known as misunderstood characters. And I think that is something that, for them to recognize and, like you said, pull on some of the elements from Disney specifically is just so damn smart. They look so incredible. And I love the idea that Agatha's probably actually been around so long that she did inspire the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah, she's based on me,
It's so good.
But what do you think he meant by when he said prove it?
Yeah, I don't know. I felt
sure
like that was maybe just more of like a teenager being a teenager kind of thing.
Sure, just kind of being like, a jerk.
Yeah, because he's pretty frustrated.
Calling your flying moment, right? Monkeys.
Exactly. Oh. Right? Yeah. And then I also wanted to mention Billy saying the chariot didn't come up for him often, or didn't really come up for him, right? So he pulls that card. He doesn't really know what it is. And then he says, oh, yeah, it never came up for me. And I did some light reading, and we're probably going to talk a little bit about tarot in this episode, just so you know. But control, there's some key meanings, right? There's control, determination, victory and success, movement and travel, and balance of forces. And I want to specifically call out control, maintaining control over opposing energies, like emotions versus logic or desires or duties. We can see, we saw that Teen, before we knew him as Billy, was... he needed to know. He had to do this thing. He was so quick to sort of just leave his parents and even his boyf and go on this adventure. And then we've got movement and travel, right? So he hasn't really traveled that much, right? He hasn't really, within the last 3 years of his life, done a lot of relocation. But then you could also look at relocation as like his soul was relocated into this body, right?
That's true.
And then balance of forces, the rider often controls two opposing animals, the rider of the chariot, hinting at the need to align to different parts of yourself, right? And so this overwhelming feeling of his to just, I need to know where I fall in that balance between William and Billy. Who am I? Is just really, really cool. And again, I love the way that I know that these writers are talented, but to write this episode must have just been so incredibly complex, and it's just so cool. It's just so cool.
And it's the seventh card, and it's the seventh episode.
Come on. Back with the numbers again?
Listen.
Jeez. How many threes did you catch in this episode?
We'll get there.
Shoot.
Not too many, but I do have quite a spiel for y'all.
Maybe 3 of them. Okay, cool. All right, let's keep going here. We finally rejoin Lilia and Jen underground, where Lilia realizes she's shared fragments of her scattered thoughts with Jen already. Jen calls her out for being kooky or wispy, revealing a pattern in Lilia's erratic behavior throughout this season. We get the kind of that flash of all those moments. We flash back to young Lilia with her maestra, where it's clear that present-day Lilia is reliving her past within her younger self. Doubting her ability to read tea leaves, Lilia stares into the cup, and we shift back to the underground scene. Jen reassures Lilia not to worry about the Salem 7, as she hasn't seen them since the subway station. Lilia explains that she's experienced life out of order, with gaps and flashes, and it's worsening. When Jen asks why, Lilia quietly responds, "Maybe it's because I'm getting close to the end. And I'm like already tearing up on that. Lilia screams only to be pinned down by Agatha, who explains that she was saving her from being impaled on a sword. Lilia quickly slams Teenager, as she calls him. I love how she's like, damn, use his full name, Teenager.
Government name?
Name against a wall, and he protests. I thought we were cool. Billy apologizes and starts talking to Lilia telepathically, where Lilia, with Lilia recalling his bar mitzvah. Jen pulls Lilia aside, assuring her that she's no longer angry at the kid. Noticing what everyone is wearing, Lilia grows upset. She confesses to Billy that she was the one who cast the sigil on him. As the ceiling starts to descend with no cards placed, Lilia panics, asking, "What did I do wrong?" She flashes through more past outbursts, begging for it to stop, and suddenly finds herself back with her maestra for a second time. So we briefly saw them last week, and I know, Justin, you and I have had conversations both on this podcast and offline before of sort of like, now that, Teen or Billy, when he was revealed, threw them in the ground, like how are they going to get from here to the next part of their journey? What did you think of how this show handled bringing Lilia and Jen sort of back into the fold here?
It was flawless. It was, it tied up all of those intricate moments throughout the rest of the season where, or the series that were kind of like hints at future events. We were talking about it. Everyone was talking about it. So I don't feel like it was that much of a huge revelation. It just meant that everyone was right. And I love that how they connected it. And
I love that.
Yeah, it's a win for everyone, right? The internet wants something, right? But yeah, I feel like this is where that lost element comes into place, where it's writing in a way that connects it back and ties it back to the story and the journey that obviously Lilia's on. I absolutely loved it. I think that was foundational. It was such a great way to kind of learn more about her character in such an honest and sincere way, based on what we know of the character and how we've interacted with her. Yeah. I think this episode is very much a love letter to the character of Lilia in a lot of ways.
It's kind of putting the viewer like in her shoes and seeing how she experiences time and how it can be scary and confusing. And at this point in the series, I'm just glad that I'm on season 5 of Lost. So I know what you mean when you say she's Desmond, she's stuck in time. Megan, have you seen Lost?
No, and I never will, so it's fine.
Oh.
What a shame.
I've seen the first season, and it freaked me out. So
there you go.
It's not
and good. Rightfully
That's
so.
fair.
And like when you get to season 6, there is a full-fledged Desmond episode that is very much like this.
Cool.
And
I could have swore I saw an episode about that already, like in season 3.
Well, there's multiple episodes that kind of have him like slipping through time, but in season 6, there is a episode that really just feels like I don't know. We could debate this offline, Nate, but I think that was kind of the turning point for the season, because we were building to a specific thing, and then it just felt like that episode was it, and it was very character focused. It did give that treatment and that focus to the importance of the character. Again, I say this as a love letter to Lilia. It's also a love letter to Patti LuPone. Like,
of course,
oh my gosh,
how phenomenal is she?
Yeah, like,
it's
like, you know what? Let's just write her an episode that she can own. And as because this has penultimate all over it, and the way it's just so character focused, and where we get to at the end with that lot, like it's just it all has the elements in place, and it's such a great testament. So yeah, this whole time slipping portion I felt was pretty much the bulk of the episode that I really, really loved.
Yeah, and it was really cool, like you said, the internet, everybody's been talking about the fact that all these little blips that Lilia has said must be connected to other blips and things. I think it was just so cool to see that come to fruition and have it in order and watch her go in
satisfying,
between those.
Right?
It was so
satisfying,
good. It just really relieved me of that like confusion, I guess.
They didn't miss any of them. They didn't miss any
every
of them
single
too.
one.
Yeah.
And I also think this was such an excellent, when we're talking about bringing them back into the fold or moving forward with their characters, it's just such an excellent way to keep the impact of that Billy reveal and having them sinking in the mud, while at the same time propelling their characters forward in a way that is distinctly them. And I love Jen in this episode. I mean, I loved Lilia obviously in this episode. I loved Jen in this episode because she's very much like the other witches in that she was so against joining the coven, but she's also starting to open up so much more, and we see it in this episode. And I love the moment where Lilia snaps at her and Jen just responds with, "No, I'm listening." Like, no, you don't understand. I'm not making fun of you in this moment like I normally would.
Yeah.
I'm listening. And later in the episode, Lilia refers to herself as a forgotten woman. And it's interesting to see this show touching on the topic of beauty standards, right? And you brought it up already, Alyssa, that Jen very much is the character that is she's trying to keep people as young as possible through her serums and things like that in her day-to-day. And you've got Lilia, who very much feels like a batty old woman who can't control her mind. And it just sort of talks to both, people, the way people age, and specifically women age and kind of get left out of the conversation. And then in terms of the beauty standards thing, like again with Jen, kind of showing that she's able to move beyond that in this part of her journey through what she does in this episode. And you already brought up the costume. I was going to mention it later, but yeah, the fact that she's the
ugly witch.
Yeah. She's like butt ass ugly, and she also doesn't care about that at the same time.
She makes like a passing
She's trying not to talk
comment
about
it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
She does
like,
make,
I'm not,
she
yeah,
makes,
but the idea that sure she recognizes it, but it's not something the old Jen, the Jen before this journey, would have 100% been so upset about it. And even earlier in this series, when she's got the big filler lips or whatever, like she's freaking out about that. Here we see that she's grown just like Lilia has grown, and they're kind of going on this, like, to put these two characters together at this part of their journey is so freaking incredible. And again, I'm gonna keep saying the writing is so good in this show.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Jen serves as an anchor for Lilia. And like to your point, in a lot of ways, like they were so against the coven, and now as we've obviously reached the end here, they seem to appreciate it for what it's done for them. And Lilia understands that she wouldn't be where she is without the coven. So I think this episode kind of brings both those characters, like you're saying, Nate, full circle in understanding what the purpose of that is. I think it's obviously still to be seen if you can trust Agatha, right? And now that they know who Death is or who Rio is, then, there's other things on the table. But I think Jen now feels like she's in this, because there was a part here when she saw that subway where she was like, I could leave, right? So, right?
Yeah.
Is that hasn't happened yet, right?
No, we'll get to that for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because I want to talk about that subway as well. But
I think there was just this really incredible sense of camaraderie that finally came to fruition in this episode that we've seen hints of in moments like when they're sitting around the fire talking about things that have happened to them. They have these quick moments where they feel like they could be a coven, and then they all start fighting again. So in this episode, they really come to that moment of going, no, this is my coven and I love you all and I'm here to support you.
Also, just shout out to you, Meg, because you called out tea leaves early on when we were talking about Lily.
Oh yeah,
and
all
the
the
idea
forms
of and the idea that she of what's the witchcraft that was
divination.
Divination, and like what that
Professor
does to a
Trelawney.
person. Yeah, exactly. So
all the
so
different
what that
ways
does.
to see the future past to tell time in a magic world. Reading tea leaves is one of them.
that's crazy.
And something that this conversation kind of reminds me of is like how witches have been viewed throughout history. Like witches as, a group in the Salem days were not necessarily like magical people. They were like like-minded women or women who,
A coven.
it was a coven of people, right? Like they found each other and they might have questioned authority, or they might not have wanted, a traditional life, because back then, things were scary and women they had a place in society. And I think that finding the beauty of finding your people and your coven can really push you forward and support you through big decisions, or kind of have, found family and things like that. And all through history, feminine things have been villainized. Like if we think about things like, Megan is a huge Swiftie. Taylor Swift is a big thing for women, and
people hate her for no reason.
Going to a concert wearing things that, are for your favorite singer or your favorite artist or whatever is villainized, but like going to a football game and wearing a jersey at any time of day is totally fine. There's a big conversation about that, and I love the beauty of how this show is really putting women at its forefront. And it just so happens that the number 3 card is the Empress. And the Empress it symbolizes like fertility and growth and women and in a nurturing way. So I think that kind of like pulls all of it together, and nothing is, like you guys said, by accident. Like everything is on purpose. It all is to tell this beautifully woven story, and all of the pieces kind of fit together to give this beautiful story, present it to, the viewers, and people like us can rip it apart and put it back together and find meaning in beautiful ways.
Well, and I love the meaning in the beauty of it. But I also love when Agatha calls her Dory. It's just such
another
low
woman.
blow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
I love that she watched Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm going to put that in my pocket for later.
Maybe she was babysitting, the boys, and she wanted to, they put on a movie, maybe a bit of Finding Nemo.
Absolutely.
But I think, you talk about beauty, the beauty in this performance. We already mentioned that Patti LuPone needs to get an Emmy for this. When she says it's getting worse, I just it just hits. I know she's talented. Clearly she's talented, very talented woman, but it was it caught me off guard so much. But then to follow that up with the moment where she shoves Agatha off, and Agatha's like, I was trying to help you. And Patti LuPone gives the most musical Broadway performance of, yeah. And it's just it's so good, and I just love that she's, through her performance, she's able to embrace both sides of that. It's just so good. So good. Yeah.
She's close to that EGOT. Very close.
Let's go. Let's get it. In her second meeting with her maestra, Lilia reflects on the 3 questions. There you go, 3 questions about humility, craft, and having a coven, which she kind of guffaws at. She dismisses. Her maestra insists a witch needs a coven, but Lilia counters that it didn't work out for her before. Why would it work out again? It's not working out now. Sensing Lilia's fear, her maestra tells her that her task is not to control, but to see. Lilia snaps back to reality, walking with Jen under the road, surprised by what she's already shared with her. She finds Billy's spell book and hides it, explaining that she stopped her affliction when she was younger because it only showed her death. Suddenly, they hear Agatha and Billy arguing, and Lilia recognizes a predicted shelving unit. As Billy wishes Lilia were there, she and Jen fall through the books onto the floor, and Lilia reassures Billy that and asks about the querent, to which he jokingly replies that he's the querent, which is just I don't know where he gets a sense of humor from, but that was fantastic. Lilia instructs Billy to ask a question in his mind, to hold his question in his mind. While the witches argue, he shouts, am I William or am I Billy? And he draws a card, the magician, and a sword drops. He then chooses the sun, reunion, resulting in another sword falling. Before he can he picks up the last card, but before he can reveal it, another sword falls, and Lilia flashes back through her previous outbursts into her third meeting with her maestra. So this actually kind of does raise the question. I think, Billy's been asking some good questions this episode. Is teen William or is he Billy, and can he be both? And Alyssa, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he can absolutely be both. He has the soul of this, Billy that was in the hex, but he has the experiences and the familial love from the Kaplans. So he is also William. He's living this life of this person. I think that it could go either way. I don't really know. I surprisingly, I don't really have like a lot to say about this question.
That's all good.
My only thing would be like Lilia calls him Billy later in the episode because she's seen him in the future, but we don't know if that's just, her calling him that or, her using the short form for William. There's a lot that could be possible, but I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is paving the way for him to just call himself Wiccan.
Yeah.
And to disregard.
Great thought. I love that.
William Kaplan and Billy Maximoff, and Wiccan is his own identity, and he can make that what he wants. Because I think that's the struggle he needs to kind of embrace and get over. Is he's neither of the two. Mm-hmm. He is something new, and I think that's how they're going to really transition the this idea of his identity into one singular name, which will be Wiccan. At least that's what I think, right? So that's my prediction.
Yeah. I think it's foreshadowing, right? This is another little bit of foreshadowing to sort of show us what he really wants, right? Because why didn't he ask about Tommy, right? He's so obsessed with finding Tommy. Why didn't he ask about Tommy in that moment? He didn't. What he wants is his identity. And so I think you're exactly right, Justin. I think for him to ask that really does push the idea that he will be Wiccan in the end. And I'm wondering what kind of complications that's going to bring up about how he feels about Wanda, Vision, Tommy, and William's parents by the end of this series, and what that all sort of looks like, right? What is his relationship as Wiccan after this series with those characters and with Agatha, if he maintains any relationship or connection to Agatha? It's just going to kind of be intriguing because, we kind of think as Marvel fans, and you'd mentioned, Alyssa, earlier, again, like us sort of projecting our own thought. I mean, that's what this whole show is about. But the idea that, like, oh no, whatever our main characters' storylines need to be, it needs to be funneled into the next thing, right? And us looking at this as a trilogy of being the middle part before Vision Quest, it's like, cool, what carries over from Vision Quest? And this was the first time in this series where, I kind of was thinking to myself, well, maybe Wiccan doesn't carry over to Vision Quest. Maybe there is no reason for Wiccan to continue in this part of the story, maybe until maybe the very end or what have you, past Vision Quest. I don't know.
Well, it's funny you say that. I think I haven't really been watching this thinking about there being a part 3, because I think these two shows that we've gotten so far have been able to just kind of stand on their own. And yes, they do connect, obviously, but Agatha All Along is just this story, and there's obviously, we have references back to WandaVision, but it could also just exist on its own, and we didn't need WandaVision for it in that way. So I'm just really excited to watch this and slowly discover along with Billy that it's this experience of self-discovery, and maybe that is his only goal. Like, he doesn't need to find his mom. He doesn't need to find Tommy. He just needs to figure out who he is as a person.
But I think Nate, like you said, why didn't he ask about Tommy? I think Tommy is part of him identifying who is he. Yeah. Is he William or is he Billy? So that's why that's the deeper rooted question beyond finding Tommy, right? I think his inflection of wanting to find Tommy is for self-identity, not because he suddenly remembers his brother.
Exactly.
I think you know what I mean, because I think that's the projection piece that we see. I think he's trying to figure out who he is, and I think the happy place that Wiccan or Billy will get to, or William, is that he'll embrace all sides and have this found family that helps to create who he is. That is, potentially a Tommy, his Rebecca and the father, what was his name again? Jeff, yeah. Rebecca and Jeff will be a part of his life.
His name is Jeff.
So yeah.
No, I hear that, and I think the interesting thing with that though is like, if that's the case, then again it sort of leads me to go like, okay, but how do we do we get Tommy at the end of this series as the catalyst though to be what you're talking about, right? As the catalyst for him to kind of realize like, oh, I actually don't have a relationship with this person at all.
But maybe he doesn't see him. Maybe that's the reality, is that he doesn't see him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we end up finding out that he's out there. I think that this show very much reflects like the single best example of a spinoff in a lot of ways, right? Where it's spiritually connected, but it is a whole new breath of whatever. And I feel like that's sort of what's going to end up probably happening with Vision Quest, right? I think they're looking at these as sort of like anthology series that are still somewhat connected in world element ways and maybe events and stuff like that, but it's not so literal that it needs to continue and carry a story. But you never know. They could surprise us.
Well, I think the one thing that will carry through in Vision Quest, I'm predicting it now, we will see Ralph Boner appear in Vision Quest. I think he's going to have a new job as a sword agent or something.
There's got to be a boner in that series.
Right? 100%. Vision gets a boner. All right, let's keep going here. During during her third meeting with Lilia's Maestra, we see that Lilia's Maestra pushes her to reveal that she undertook the journey down the Witch's Road in order to get her power back. But actually, that's not the case. She pushes her further and says this is not the true reason. Lilia emotionally breaks, saying, "I'm a forgotten woman." And her Maestra instructs her, saying, "Then remember yourself." We learned that when Lilia was younger, she accurately had a vision that her entire coven died, wiped out by a fever. She saw it, she told them, but it didn't change anything. Her Maestra comforts her by telling her something we all have in common, saying, death comes for us all. Lilia quietly asks, when will it come for me? She realizes she was falling. She will fall. And her Maestra asks her, what will you do with the remaining time? This snaps Lilia back to just after she woke up with Jen under the road. She quickly gets Jen up to speed before she forgets all the details. And then as they stand before two paths, the Salem Seven appear. They quickly hide, and even though Jen contemplates taking the path through the subway station off the road, she ultimately makes the right decision to join Lilia on her way to the trial. And Lilia says, I know what I did wrong. Megan, you're already freaking out here because I mentioned the Salem Seven.
I can't help it.
Regardless of your trauma, what did you think of the reveal that Lilia's trauma comes from her past predicting not only a large group of people would die, because we all sort of had that understanding that she probably predicted death for a large group of people, but this was her own coven that she actually saw die and tried to warn. How do you think that informed her character where we find her in the series?
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Fear can do a lot to a person and really take them down the wrong path. So to see that she's decided it's easier to be a hermit, it's easier to not attach yourself to anybody, it's easier to avoid any kind of connection because then you don't experience loss. And yeah, she predicts the future, but she can't change the future. You can't do anything about it. So being able to see that ahead of time was terrifying for her as a little girl. So for sure, that's how she's going to live her life. And I think it's cool to watch her come to the conclusion that it's okay, that that's how she is. That's how she experiences life. But now she can use it to help people instead of lock herself away and and avoid love. She's accepting love now and accepting connection, and it's really, really beautiful to see her go through this whole process. I think that's why this episode is so incredible, because you're watching such a complicated thing go through somebody's whole lifespan. Yeah,
I think she's, as you're describing, she's overcoming her trauma, she's overcoming her personal trauma with her powers and understanding why she repressed them and hid them and so on and so forth. I think this again, just the way she kind of comes to this revelation and her performance is just, it feels so natural, feels so earned because of how we've watched Lilia kind of throughout this season. And yeah, this is just another acting master class from Patti LuPone.
What a clinic.
Yeah, she's
So good.
She's so good in this. She's so good.
What a beautiful thing to bring Patti LuPone to major audiences. Like, this woman has 3 what does she have? 3 Tonys, 2 Grammys, 2 Oscars, and I've never seen any of those things. I've heard of the name, but like, now I don't want her off my screen. I want to see Lilia like next week. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll get that. This was just such a beautiful revelation that we saw before our eyes. I think there was a really beautiful quote that reminded me of Hamilton, where she says, like, why are you here? She says, I'm looking to get my power back. And she says, is it gone? Where did it go? And she has a moment and goes, death comes for us all. And she says, well, when will it come for me? So my mind immediately went, I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. When's it going to get me? In my sleep, 7 feet ahead of me. If I see it running, do I come or do I let it be? And then after I sang that to myself, I caught back up to the show. And there was this moment where she says, like, I was falling. And then the perspective changes from one side of Maestra to the other side. And it's not just like a visual perspective change. It's her actual perspective is changing. And from that moment on, everything else is much more confident. Like, she's, I'm sure we'll get to it, but she goes through the tarots and everything. The part where she says, like, I was falling into I will fall. And the maestra said, yes, and what are you going to do with the remaining time? I, like, choked up.
Yeah.
And in Hamilton, he says, we have to make this moment last. That's plenty. And that makes me cry every single time, too. So just a lot of beautiful anecdotes. Like, it might not have been on purpose. It might just be me extrapolating from this. But, like, Patti LuPone is major in musical theater, and this is a major American musical theater number. And I thought that it was so beautiful. And, yeah, I'm so blessed to have Patti LuPone on my screen.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's the most beautiful part about, look at us. We're talking about art in general and how we perceive it. but it is one of the most beautiful parts about these stories, and the fact that, what we bring to them, they can give us so much back, and it's kind of a dance, right? We're kind of both, between the writers
giving
and the people that are creating this, there's giving, there's taking, there's receiving.
Having and sharing.
But I love that, and I love, to your point, Alyssa, the perspective shift, but also the body language shift in Patti LuPone's performance was so phenomenal. And I just love the idea that deep down, regardless of her premonition, from this moment of her recognizing that she needed a coven, she's always needed that, right? And she joins this coven. She initially declines, just like all the other witches, but she shows up. She shows up no matter how bad the appetizers are, and she is there at that get together. And it's because she's always known deep down that it's something that she's needed to do, even before she had that premonition with William Kaplan at his bar mitzvah. She knew even before then, because of her life experience, that she needed to be with other witches. And I just think that's so freaking phenomenal. Yes. Oh, sorry. One more thing. Yeah.
Yeah, just one more thing. I think it's also kind of scary that we see these hallucinations in episode 3 where they had the wine and then they go all crazy. And when Lilia sees her maestra dead and then death comes up from behind her, she says in Sicilian, "I morta tutta morta sunu," which means they're dead, like they're all dead. And seeing that as a hallucination, but knowing that was her reality and she was seeing that, just shows that like there's so many horrible things that have probably happened in her life that has kind of, you know, made her seem kooky or
wispy.
strange or wispy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that could have also potentially like put her into a place where she just wanted to be, you know, by herself, away from a coven and not have to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, I think she had like a lot of like sort of like relationship problems, right? To a certain degree. Like she couldn't let people into her life because of the power that she had, right? And
like Bruno
that's what I feel like
Madrigal.
she's kind of Yeah, exactly, right?
It's so sad. My fish would die the next day dead, you know?
Speaking of Hamilton, it's all connected, bro.
I'm telling you guys.
But that's what this is awesome about this episode. It's sort of a happy tragic story, right? Like you're learning so much about her history and her past that has influenced her to be the character and to be seen this way. And even when she has that monologue with Jen and she's just like, I see how you see me, right? Like I'm just a crazy person. They don't understand the full breadth of her power and what it has done to her, right? And she's trying to explain it. I think that's, again, what helps build the foundation with her and Jen. And then as we get into this other scene where it's super confident, she's in control, that's her snapping in and accepting full responsibility for the tragedies that come with her powers. She's not limiting herself anymore. She's not putting up barriers in her mind and stopping herself and the little gaps. Remember, she refers to them as gaps that are poking through. She's embracing it. And again, Desmond fucking Hume, just living in the fucking moment.
Okay, I'll get to season 6.
Jeez, hurry up, Alyssa.
I'll let you know when I'm done.
You don't have much time. The documentary's coming soon.
I know. I have to watch like 2 a day for 2 weeks, and then I'll be done.
Okay, we're all talking about this moment where Lilia gains that confidence. I want to get to it because then there's also another moment that I really want to get to that we've been waiting a very long time to talk about. But Lilia, now fully determined that she knows what she did wrong, picks up the cards off the table and realizes she was reading for the wrong person. She declares, I am the traveler. She says, I am the Queen of Cups, empathetic, intuitive, inner voice to be trusted, which I love when Agatha's like, yeah, we know you're a mensch.
So good.
She pulls the 3 of Pentacles, collaboration, community, singular voices waiting to harmonize, and we get to see sort of on the card, it looks like them, you know, when they were singing, and it's just so good. Which, by the way, in that card, if you look really closely, it does look like Billy is actually standing there with them in that moment.
They're all pictures of like moments
of them.
and scenes.
Of them.
It's so
perfect.
cool.
Yeah.
The path behind reveals the Knight of Wands, full of fire, fights bravely, and we got that we'll get to it. The path ahead reveals the High Priestess, immense spiritual power, unable or unwilling to use it. Obstacles reveal the 3 of Swords, heartbreak, sorrow, grief. The Windfall reveals the Tower reversed, disaster, destruction, sudden upheaval, but reversed, it means miraculous transformation. And then suddenly and finally, the Destination. We then cut immediately to see both Jen and Lilia hitting the ground under the road. And when their bodies flop on the mud like that, I was like, oh,
I thought that it was Sharon Davis, and I thought that her legs were broken.
No,
but it was just
broken.
Lilia, just like contorted in a particular way.
Flopping down. So let's talk about this. I think we could sort of look at this as the true tarot reading scene. What did you think? Was there anything that you caught that you wanted to shout out? And I'm going to throw it over to Alyssa to kind of kick us off to see if you caught anything. Did you count any numbers or catch any tarot card meanings
or
what?
Of course.
Come on, let's go.
So, I mean, this was a bit of a light number 3 episode. I heard all of your conversation about the posters last week and everything, and I was like, yes, everybody got on the 3 train. I'm so glad. Of course, there was the 3 of Pentacles, that represents the coven, so beautiful. 3 of Swords we talked about in I think we talked about it in episode 5 when I was on last, and I know you guys talked about it in the first, spoiler-filled episode. But the thing that I wanted to discuss specifically was death and how it was placed. Death is the number 13 in tarot. And
interesting.
Reading up on tarot.com, because the card was placed sideways and not vertically or reversed. Typically, when something is placed sideways, they are not seen for their positive or negative attributes, but as a whole. For example, from what we heard in this week's episode, Lilia says the tower reversed. Upwards, the tower means disaster, destruction, and sudden upheaval, but reversed means miraculous transformation, like Nate just said. So rather than taking the meaning from only one of the fortunes, we must take both. So death. In terms of death upright is not literal death, thankfully, or death of a person. It may represent major transformation, new beginnings, closing of a chapter in one's life to make way for another, or acceptance of things coming to an end so that new growth can happen. The reversed death urges you to stop resisting the inevitable. So Lilia, resisting change, seeing gaps rather than embracing the change that she needs. Clinging to the past or avoiding necessary changes could be holding you back from transformation. The card may suggest that it's time to let go of fear and trust the process. But when death appears sideways, we must look in between. It suggests that change is approaching, but you may be wavering between embracing it or resisting it. And this can be a signal that you're at a crossroads. And your current choices will determine whether the change flows smoothly or if you'll encounter obstacles. It's a call to reflect on your feelings about the shift and to decide whether to lean in or hold back. And I think that is just a description of the episode that we saw.
Yeah.
We saw her struggle. We saw acceptance. We saw all of the different phases, right? And not to get to, put the cart ahead of the horse, but this is just such an integral part of the episode. And I thought it was beautiful the way that tarot has become this kind of like syllabus of what we're discovering about witchcraft and this show.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice while looking at tarot.com, which is fantastic, by the way, is I noticed there was a lot of themes on there that we were seeing in the show. Things like the Hebrew language or Judaism. We were seeing a lot of zodiac that we talked about in a previous episode. And, of course, tarot. And there's a lot of similarities between the representation of, the zodiac signs, something in the Judaism called Kabbalah. I apologize if I'm not saying that correct, but Kabbalah is a Jewish mysticism that explores the nature of God, the universe, and human beings, and it explores the paths connecting spheres that represent the spiritual journey or processes of divine revelation. So to me, as a viewer of this show, I'm seeing all of those things connected, but Kabbalah is like the representation of the witch's road. It's Billy Kaplan's experience and his bar mitzvah and all of those things beautifully combined into Wiccan. So I just thought that I would point that out because I didn't want to just keep that to myself.
That's crazy.
I mean, if all of that is actually true and you've just not made these connections, Jack Schaefer's a genius. Like, holy.
A genius.
She's a genius anyway, but like if all of that is on purpose, holy moly.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's dope. That puts my tarot card I wanted to shout out to a bit of shame, but
I'm sorry, Nate.
No, you're good. I want to mention the High Priestess. Lilia called Jen the High Priestess in the episode they met, in episode 2. She calls her the High Priestess, and in fact, Jen is standing in the outfit that we sort of see her doing.
Yeah, it's from
pose.
that episode.
It's from that episode.
Yeah.
And the High Priestess in tarot symbolizes intuition, mystery, hidden knowledge, and the subconscious. And I really want to look at the subconscious. I think is really interesting.
Next episode, bro.
Right? She represents the power of inner wisdom and encourages looking beyond the surface to access deeper truths. The card invites you to trust your instincts and explore the unknown. And I think the other thing too, in terms of looking within oneself, is so interesting because all of the descriptions of the High Priestess tarot card sound like someone who is focusing more on inner beauty than outer beauty. And again, it just kind of like what we were talking about before, it just shows how far Jen has come. And that, when we talk about, a grand transformation or transition, we're all thinking about Billy in that episode, but in reality, it's all of these characters. And I love how these characters are just as important as all of them, right? They're each one of them is I think the show is not, sometimes I think, like I said before, with the MCU, it sort of feels sometimes like we focus solely on the characters that are going to move forward into the grander MCU. But I love that this show is like, no. It's fine. We're going to tell phenomenal stories about characters that this might just be their story. And that's okay. And I think that's so freaking cool.
Absolutely.
I think that's why they do such an amazing job in this show, because you get to care about the other characters in it, where, one of the many problems with Multiverse of Madness is that we don't really get much out of America Chavez. Like, she deserved so much more.
Absolutely.
But they didn't give room or space or the writing for her. So it happens to a lot of these side characters when you keep adding storylines and adding too much to movies or shows. A lot of characters will fall to the wayside because they just don't give the time or space for them. But this show really, yes, it's called Agatha All Along. Yes, Wiccan is revealed in it, but every single individual character that we meet has importance, and that's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think that's the benefit of television in a lot of ways, is having more time with these characters to make them matter. In the case of what you were referencing with like America Chavez, she was a MacGuffin of the film. That was it. Do you know what I mean? She was just she could have been. She was a plot
could have been
point.
like a box. You know what I mean? Like a glowing box, and it wouldn't have really made a difference.
And it was so it's so disheartening to that character because of how much they mattered. She could have done really great in a show like this, though. As someone that didn't fully understand her own powers, or in a Ms. Marvel, that would have been sweet. But anyways, you're absolutely right. Like, I think the attention to these characters and their growth. And I'm totally with you, Nate. I think the next episode is very much a focus on Jen and what she is going to reveal for the rest of the group. And I'm imagining it'll be probably the morgue, if you will, the morgue room with the clock, and that with the you have that shot that's in the trailer where it's like Agatha's touching Wiccan's head, and they're having like an Xavier moment, if you will. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think that it's so cool to see that the tarot is so closely aligned with decisions that were made narratively and with these characters. Because you're right. Like Jack Schaefer and her whole writing team, because she didn't write this episode. She's showrunner, and she is the director of it, but she has her hands in it all. And I think she trusts her team to do what they're going to do. And, you were talking about it before, Alyssa, the show is really about a celebration of womanhood and sisterhood, and that the unity that brings. And also it plays with the stereotypes of the cattiness and the witchiness.
Yes,
but it is about the togetherness and the unity and that each of these women are discovering. And there is a sense of self-sacrifice that's happening for each of them. So it'll be, I don't think we're going to end up with Jen after the next episode. But we'll see. We'll see what happens beyond, right? Because everyone's theory is that these characters aren't actually dead. And I'm like, I don't know. After today's episode, I'm like, all right, I'm hoping they don't just try to pull that back, because that really hit, right? So.
Yeah. I honestly thought that she said high priestess because she was greeting her, and not because she is a high priestess
going
through time. I don't remember ever thinking differently about that in my infinite scrolls on Agathario TikTok. I haven't seen anybody talking about how that might be one of the quotes that needs to be completed, and seeing that back was just so beautifully done. I do also want to touch on what Megan said about utilizing America Chavez and not doing it well, and how beautifully it's being done here, and how these side characters are being developed in such a short amount of time. She could have easily been replaced with a tempad, and it would have been exactly the same. But we used her for something else, which is. We'll get into that another time, I'm sure. I just forget about her all the time, which is so sad, because America Chavez is a fantastic character. But yeah.
Well, speaking of, what did you say? Agathario?
Agathario.
Agathario, sorry. Agathario compilations.
Is that their ship name?
Still working on my fan fictions.
I love it.
I'm not.
We'll try to get that out to Jack Schaefer as fast as possible.
Oh my gosh. Put it on HBO.
Well, I think a Rio reveal, maybe not like the ones that you're writing in your fan fiction, but let's get to that. Lilia wakes up, and as she looks forward, she sees her true destination. A figure walks towards her, and she asks, "Who is that?" We hear Rio's voice saying, "Don't you recognize me, Lilia?" Lilia flashes back through all the moments that should have informed her who Rio really is, and as she turns the destination card over, she's frozen in fear. Agatha yells at her, grabs the card out of her hand, and slams it on the table, and the ceiling stops and begins to ascend upwards. So we finally have it. The reveal, Rio is death. Alyssa, what did you think of how this reveal came about?
What can I say? I like the bad boys. I like the bad boys. I dislike Funko.
Thank you, Funko.
I was going to say, can we all collectively agree that Funko sucks?
Middle finger, yeah.
We love Funko, obviously,
finger.
but how many things have been ruined by Funko being like, we need to announce this, or maybe it was a leak, right? Was it a leak?
No, it was. I think it was a bit of. I think it was a bit of both. I think it was just mishandling of a release, and they were very quickly. From what I read, they were quickly to pull it down.
Yeah.
But a lot of people already had the theories that that's who she was. That was already a confirmation. But this would have been a lot sweeter hadn't I have heard all of that. That's who she was going to be.
And
right?
for Wiccan, it's all on the back of the thing, and we haven't really gotten that yet either.
Yeah,
so
do we get a full-on costume reveal?
We must, because
Wiccan?
he has, he has the stuff, and it would have just been such a beautifully done reveal if we hadn't gotten it on the back of a fucking toy box.
I know.
I just imagine the scream I would have scrumped.
Yeah.
If I hadn't seen it,
I scream past tense.
Absolutely,
Scrumped.
yes, and it will be from now
yeah.
on. The scream I would have scrumped.
But were you scrumping when you saw her reveal, actually getting to see her as Death looked incredible?
I did scrump in a way that was more like, oh, she looks scary, she looks amazing. Knowing that it was coming, I have tried to kind of pull the not so negative out of it. Lady Death is, of course, Rio Vidal. We talked all about that on the last episode I was on. But she's not entirely evil in the comics. Death is not a malicious thing. It's just a simple fact of life. It's not good or bad. It could be scary, but it is life. So I think the way that I am going to perceive it is that she's kind of an ambiguous character. And I'll talk a little bit more about it in my prediction, but I was very excited to see the actual embodiment of what we have been anticipating, and that scary face that she provided us from the shadows. It was spooky.
So good. I mean, I love that. It's interesting. I went back and I looked at because we've been talking about Lilia in this episode, and I wanted to see the version of Death that we saw in episode 3 to see the similarities or differences, and it really is very similar from the cheekbones up, at least. You really do see the same eyes from Rio in this moment and that version of Death. And I love what you're saying, Alyssa, that Rio as Death here is the original Green Witch. She's a gardener, right? At the end of the day, she has a knife in one hand and she has a flower in the other, and it's death and rebirth. And that's really that symbolization there. And I think that's so cool how they work that into the design. I don't know if that's necessarily a thing that's part of Lady Death necessarily, but I just thought it was really, really cool. And the idea that the original Green Witch is Death, because at the end of the day, as our bodies are all kind of seeds, right? And we all go into the ground in one way or another. And I love that sort of idea. But at the same time, mega spooky.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the way that in that kind of perception of death and how it's not entirely evil is a great reflection or parallel to Agatha and how she's perceived as evil, and people are only seeing the negatives in what, you know, she is and what she's been through, but they kind of get each other in that way, and I think that's what we'll see a little bit more in the following episodes.
100%. That is what they share, is they're both misunderstood, right? They're both seen as evil and you know, as these like very mysterious characters, but their bond is that's what they share, is how people perceive them and judge them based on that. And I think that's, you know, like there has to be a side to death that has to be somewhat of what we had seen in episode 4, right? Where there is that sort of romantic kindred moment between Agatha and Rio. So I feel like we need to see a little bit more of that. It could be a representation in her mind, because remember last week we didn't see that she was talking to Rio in that scene in her house when Teen was kind of reliving the moments. And I wonder if that's going to reveal something in next week's episode and how she perceives death. Maybe something since her son died, when she sacrificed her son. So we'll see. But I think that death's been a long time coming, ever since Thanos. Yeah, it was told like
reference.
It was told by his little henchman
to court
to court death itself, and it's to challenge them would be to court death itself, and I think that's right. You were the one who
no,
said
you got
wrong.
You got it.
But yeah, I think it's again it always there, always lingering. I think Aubrey Plaza has been perfect at this. I could see them saying like, so essentially you're death, and she's just like, sign me up.
Hell yeah.
That sounds so fucking cool. So you know what I mean, like I'm down. So, and she gets to she's been leaning in hard on this, and I think it shows, and even in this reveal, the full look, it's, you know, it's perfect.
Yep. Yeah, and just as like a final, you know, I feel like I've brought up Harry Potter a lot in these episodes. In
Voldy?
The Deathly Hallows. What?
Voldy? I was thinking.
Voldy?
Like,
No,
like
he's
Voldy.
not.
Yeah.
F that B. No. In Deathly Hallows Part 1, Hermione reads the story of the 3 brothers, and that is a tale of death, where 2 out of the 3 were basically trying to cheat death. One craved power so much. Oh, what? 3 brothers? Is that what we're?
He said 3, and my witch senses went off.
Yeah,
her 3 star went off.
Yeah. So the first brother is, you know, in search of power, and that's how he's going to defeat death. He's going to be the most powerful wizard, and no one will be able to kill him. And that, in turn, is his reason for dying. The second brother is basically trying to cheat death and bring his love back from the dead, and because she can't truly be with him because she's already dead, he kills himself. The third brother greets death like an old friend when the time comes, and I think that's a really beautiful representation of the fact that death is not evil or good. It's this gray middle space of just what life is. So to accept death is to befriend death and understand death, and I think that will also be discovered and referenced and spoken of and featured in the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, I think again it's the thing that we all have in common. I thought that was like sort of poetic, right? Like it's beyond everything, death is the thing that we have in common. So I like that acknowledgement of the idea of like welcoming death like an old friend. It's cool.
And to see that you know, that was how she comforted, you know, Billy in that moment is the same way that her maestra comforted her probably many times as she was going through this experience. I want to just shout out, you know, we've been talking about the costume design. I do want to shout out the art design team just a little bit for just making me realize, or maybe remember, I don't know, maybe both, that Westview was chosen because Wanda Vision, WV, like just the little symbol on the background of the subway car. I was like, I got to pause it. I got to look at this. And it's a W and a V smushed together. And I'm like,
Am I
okay,
really
that's
dumb
pretty
for
dope.
not knowing that?
But I thought that was Westview. I thought it was like Westview, like
it's like Westview,
tunnels.
yeah, Westview transit system that Miss Hart mentioned, right? But at the same time, it's like it's also WandaVision. Like it's just I don't know. It's just
no, for sure. But everyone was always wondering what was underneath Westview.
Yeah,
It's that
And like
subway.
if it
Subways.
tunneled, yeah, but if it tunneled to the Witch's Road or like to somewhere else, like there's always there was something that was to be said, and I know Eric Voss has probably talked about it immensely, but the fact that Westview, where things happened, it was on something. There was something that made it like exceptionally fertile for like spells and for witchcraft and sort of the mystery, and you know the idea that like there was this reference to like the tunneling that beekeeper was climbing through and stuff like that. There's also again this idea of the subway, like what is underneath it. It was crazy that they had, I don't know, that was weird. I'm like, where's that going? What's over there?
Where are the bees? The bees.
I don't know. Like I thought that was pretty intriguing. So it's cool. There's something there.
I also, just as costume design's sake, I love that her like Rio's version of death, or the visual of death, is not like this. It is hooded, but it's not just like a cloak with a big giant dagger stick thing. She looks a lot like the Salem 7. The way that like headpiece sits on her head and it drapes down, and all this like all the drapery around her is very witchy. So I think that was a really cool way to represent her as a witch, but also as death. I don't know. Well done.
And is there some deeper connection between the Salem 7 and her as death based off of those costume design choices? Interesting. Okay, I got a thought about the Salem 7 coming up. But let's keep going here. With the trial now passed, the exit reveals itself. Lilia informs the other witches that Rio is Death, the original Green Witch. Billy immediately looks to Agatha, asking her if it's true, and she says, "What can I say? I like bad boys." We hear the Salem 7 have arrived, and Lilia rushes everyone into and through the Iron Maiden. She stops Agatha and says, "When she calls you a coward, hit the deck." She stops Billy and gives him back his book of spells, and he asks how, and she simply says, "Magic." She pushes Jen ahead of her, saying, "You're the path ahead, Jennifer." Jen turns back and says, "Lilia," and Lilia says, "I loved being a witch," and closes the door, trapping herself inside with the 7. She turns back, and as their animal forms fill the room, Lilia informs them slyly that when you successfully complete a trial, like I just did, it's not a good idea to overstay your welcome. Usually something terrible happens. Disaster, destruction, sudden upheaval like the tower upright. She turns the tower card upright, and the Salem 7 and all the tarot cards begin slowly falling upwards. The Salem 7 are brutally impaled on the swords, killing each of them. When we see Lilia, we then see Lilia holding on and then letting go, and as we follow her falling towards her final destination, we see her face, this time not afraid, but with a sense of accomplishment. The screen goes dark, and we see a young Lilia excited to join her maestra for her first lesson. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was so good.
Just gorgeous.
What a phenomenal ending. And I kind of want to dive in here by asking for your witchy predictions, but also positioning the question of, did Lilia die? Did she reset? How did you see this moment? But also your predictions. So, witch, please tell me the future. Alyssa, did you have any predictions like Lilia herself that you wanted to share? And again, is this a reset for her, or was it truly the end?
I have a lot of feelings about this. To address Lilia, does she live or die? I think that she this is the end of her road, but like she said, time is not as you perceive it. So I think that she's lived a life, and now she's going to live in the present of that life. She's kind of circled back to herself as a child. I think that, like, I believe Megan and Justin have said, like, that's the beauty of the sacrifice that the coven members are taking, is if they're not really dead, then that might take away from how we feel about the sacrifice, the stakes that there is, and it might change our, perception of the show and how the sacrifice is important to
it's less
the story
impactful.
moving forward. I had a bit of a Lilia moment this past weekend. And I thought I would mention it before I get into my witch please. I did not know two things before yesterday, Wednesday. I did not know what an Iron Maiden was, and I did not know.
It's a band.
Yes, I knew it was a band, but I didn't know what it was, I did not know what a windfall was, because she talks about the tower being reversed, and it's the windfall.
I still don't know.
This past weekend, I watched this show on Disney Plus, which all of you wonderful people should absolutely watch. It's called The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. And it's like the Steven Universe Adventure Time, Rick and Morty creators making a Disney show. And there's an episode called I Heart Mickey, where his heart, he gives it to Minnie, and it gets stuck in an Iron Maiden. And I thought it was so wild that the Iron Maiden was also in this episode. And the night of the show coming out, Joe and I, my partner and I, watched the movie Windfall on Netflix. The Jason Segel, Lily Collins, and not Matt Damon. What's his name?
Ben Affleck.
The other one.
No, he looks like Matt Damon. Anyways, Jesse Plemons. So I was like, oh, what's a windfall? I don't know what it means. I learned about it. And then in the same day, windfall is brought up. A word I've never heard before in this show. So had a little bit of a Lilia moment.
Wait, sorry, what is a windfall though?
A windfall is just like a complication, or like something that happens that leads to like negative results.
Okay.
And I would suggest watching the movie. It's a good movie. It's not what we're here to talk about, but anyways, I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So,
that is, you're having these little
I'm having them
these
all the
days.
time.
Yeah.
This show is on my mind all the time. Witch please. So in the last Witch Club, my theory was, at the end of the road, Agatha wants her coven to have family, to love. I think she truly wants to be good, and that her power has always been her poison, and that Teen will teach her that practical magic or old witchcraft is just as resourceful and powerful. In addition to that, I'm going to change my ending. I don't think that they're looking for Wanda at the end of the road, at the end of the yellow brick road. I see that they are, of course, looking for Tommy, but I think what they'll find is Rio, who is a parallel of the great and powerful Oz. She's the Green Witch. He's the parallel of the Emerald City Wizard. And her motivations are also ambiguous, just like his were in the musical and in the movie. We know that she wants bodies, and she also, can love and care for others, like we talked about a little bit earlier. So that's what I'm going with. My thought is that Agatha created an immortality pact with Rio. We've seen in the comics that she can influence immortality, and people like the Black Knight, in Deadpool, Thanos. There's a conversation about immortality and their relation to death in the comics.
Cool.
And that's why in the first episode she said it's not allowed. She's not allowed to kill her. Rio is here on the Witch's Road, in my opinion, to collect Billy ultimately at the end. And what I foresee is that Agatha will end up giving up the power that she seeks the most to sacrifice herself to allow Billy to live on. And that's where I believe it's going.
I like that.
I like that.
Yeah, if she's gonna sacrifice anything, it's gonna be for him, right? It's and I think it'll be at the expense of her own life. Yeah, that's I totally agree with that. I could see that happening.
Yeah, and that thing we've been seeing in the trailers and in like the posters of like that purple morgue, I think is kind of like a plane between like the living and the dead, and that's where we'll unfortunately lose Jen. But Yeah, I'm not sure. I want to hear your witches, please.
Interesting.
Witch,
listen,
please.
witch, please. Calm down, Justin. I know you're so excited.
I'm so excited.
Calm down. Relax.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
Jeez. Okay.
You came up with this thing.
Justin,
Witch, please.
please tell me the future. Go for it.
Like I was saying before, I think that the next trial is going to be Jen's, and you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be in that morgue time clock situation. It looks like a clock, so it must be the kind of the signifier of the countdown. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes from that. But I think the last episode, it is going to be we're going to be left with 3. We're gonna be left with Rio and Agatha and Wiccan, and I think Alyssa said it great. I think if Agatha is going to sacrifice herself and somehow redeem herself in this show, it is going to be at the well-being of Wiccan and protecting him. And I wonder how that'll all play out. We have some stuff that we've seen in trailers that we haven't seen yet, like a gigantic Rio or Death towering over Agatha.
Jen reaching through the ground and climbing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Right. So, yeah, you think she's going to get resurrected? We'll see.
Witch, please.
Yeah, witch, please. I don't like. I really hope they don't do that. Like maybe one of them, and if it was supposed to be Jen, then that's fine. But
I don't think she. Just to jump ahead here, I don't think she's resurrected. I just think that she survives.
Okay.
She's the only one that's gone through a trial and survived. So I think she survives in the end.
That's true.
I think what we're seeing there of her, and she's also the only one in that trailer that comes through the ground. We don't see any of the others. Seeing her in that trailer, her coming through the ground, initially had me speculating, we talked about this, that all of them were going to come back, but you're all absolutely right. With Lilia having this incredible moment in this episode, and Alice having the incredible moment in when she passed, I really don't want them to come back, but I don't think that means that Jen has to die to get to that moment. I think she survives. Megan, I'm so sorry. Witch, please. What do you got for us?
Please. I think I'm the only one who didn't watch any of these trailers, because every time you guys bring stuff up from a trailer, I'm just sitting here like, oh God.
It could be in the past.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't really have much of a prediction for this week, because that was just such a beautiful way to close out Lilia's story, and I was just very satisfied with that episode. So like, I'm super intrigued to see where we go from here. Again, after, our discussion about Billy's self-discovery journey more so than anything, I don't know that anybody will be featured in this last episode. I don't know if Speed will be a part of it, or Tommy, sorry. I think that the idea of Agatha sacrificing herself to give him a second chance at life is a very poetic way to end this, and a beautiful way, and it falls in line with Agatha's comic book storylines, and she does end up kind of being this ethereal ghost in some comics, so that would fall in line with that. I don't know. I'm jacked up for a 2-episode finale. I'm ready.
Well, I think, speaking of being jacked up, I think if Jack Schaefer can pull off, can pull off the comic book, if she can make the comic book readers happy while also giving a very unique story in the MCU, that is a feat, because oftentimes we'll kind of see one way or the other, and where we get some phenomenal stories and the comic book readers are like, it's not my insert character here. Yeah. So I think that would be really, really cool if we do get to sort of see it align and sort of fall in line with where the comics come from. Before I get into my witch, please, Alyssa, did you have something you wanted to add here?
Well, I don't want to do it before you do your thing. I just had a question about, do you think that the burn and brew with Coven 2 will come to fruition that they talked about in episode 4?
Isn't it true, though? Isn't that just her?
It is true. but it could be that they've maybe heard it wrong, or it's been passed as a wives' tale and changed over time. I just wanted to get your ideas on that.
Oh, I strictly just thought that was Agatha like messing with them.
That's fair. Okay.
Could be.
That's
it
just
could
me,
be.
though.
Nate, which
yeah.
please?
I
Give
got
us
you.
your future prediction.
Listen, this is going to blow your mind. Really, okay? Because I must have had some sort of divination when I crafted the prediction segment for this series of Watch Club, calling it Which Please Tell Me the Future. Because I had no idea when I came up with it that the future and being able to tell the future was going to be so important to this series. So, yeah, you're welcome. But not only that, but at the beginning of this Watch Club episode, I had a moment. I think we all experienced it. I said the Six of Wands, which, if you know your tarot, the Six of Wands represents victory, recognition, and public acknowledgement. It signals the successful outcome of efforts and the joy of being celebrated for your achievements. And this episode deserves to be celebrated. I got chills multiple times when she flips that card around. It was absolutely insane, and I just got chills like crazy. And the way this episode ends in the same way that it begins is so cool, not just because I love a good bookend, we all know that, but because it gives, like you were saying, Alyssa, earlier, it gives you a small taste of really what it was like to be Lilia throughout most of her life, right? It's a moment that it puts us in that moment where we don't fully understand what we were seeing as we were experiencing it. And as soon as Lilia fully understood in that moment what she was experiencing, so did we. And that's the coolest shit I've ever experienced, like in a show, like in a video game. We get this quite often. We're lucky enough to sort of be able to be that aligned with the characters and the protagonists of these stories. But in a show, it really doesn't happen all that often. So this needs to win something for writing, for directing, for whatever. Give this episode all of its accolades. On to my predictions, which please. I'm going to go lighter predictions, and then I'll give you a big prediction.
Ooh.
I think as I was mentioning earlier, the only witch that's going to make it off the road is Jen. She's going to chart the path ahead. So she is going to sort of be responsible, whether we see her again in the MCU or not. She is responsible, at least for the ending of this story, to sort of represent the continuation in some semblance. As I mentioned, we see her as the only one getting out of the ground in the trailer, and she's the only one that didn't die in her trial. I think she's going to be significant in the fight against Rio in the end. I do think that's going to be a big fight, I'm hoping it's not a big, like, flashy, like, green, purple smash-up colors that we saw even in WandaVision, fell into that trap. And I think a lot of the MCU series, Disney Plus series and even the movies do that. So I'm hoping it's not quite that. I hope it's more nuanced than that. And I have the trust based off of this episode that these writers are going to come through. I do think, like you were saying, Megan, Agatha is going to die in some way. I also think that we're going to see at least 2 of the Salem 7. Again, I think if you think about it, 3 of those Salem 7 animals can fly. So if they're falling, maybe they have the ability. We only saw, if you count, 5 bodies, if we're counting bodies and numbers.
But you see 7 flip, though. Like, I watched it again.
But that doesn't mean that halfway through they could have transformed,
turned into
and
like a
flew
bird
away.
or something.
A bird, a bunch of cicadas, whatever you got, right? An owl. Yep. So I think at least 2 of them are going to continue and be some part of at least the next episode, which is not the biggest prediction, but just an interesting one. And then I think as far as a prediction that goes beyond this series itself, I think Billy or Wiccan will inevitably become the Scarlet Witch. And I think, that sounds crazy because it's like we all want Wanda. We want more Scarlet Witch. We want more of her era. And we're going to get that. Absolutely. I'm not saying this is happening immediately. But when we first see Lilia in this episode, we get a yellow glow on her face. And I think this is the moment right before she placed the sigil on William. I think this is her seeing who he becomes. She says in this episode, I saw what you'd become. and I knew that you just needed time. And you could look at that as like, specifically limited to this series. But I almost wonder if it's going to be one of those really, really cool moments where one day when we do see this character take on that mantle, that it reminds us perfectly of both this moment and the moment that Wanda herself saw that vision of her as the Scarlet Witch in the future. So that's just a little thought. The time stone, I think not the time stone, the Mind Stone is yellow. And I remember that being something that was brought up a lot when talking about Wanda and WandaVision and the ability to control minds and create life. And so I just wonder if at some point, I think it could make a lot of sense that we go all the way back to this moment and we go, that's what Lilia saw. I think it would be really, really cool. I don't know. That's just a bigger theory. But
well, the Mind Stone was what gave her powers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It gave her and her brother, Pedro, the powers that they have, right? So, yeah, that makes sense. That tracks.
I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be really cool. And again, I'm not saying that I don't want, I want more Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, but I do think eventually we could see, as we move into maybe the later half or even further of the Young Avengers, because that's kind of what we're doing, isn't it, with the MCU right now? It's every single one of these characters has a Young Avengers replacement.
I think, though, he's sooner going to be like Wiccan and maybe like...
Yes, we'll explore that first.
Yeah, I don't know
100%.
about taking on the mantle of Scarlet Witch, though, because he'd be blue.
And not only that, and like not only that, I just feel like that is a mantle that is reserved for Wanda, and I just wonder if it diminishes it. And like I know that they've talked about like the Scarlet Witch is a very unique person who's been around for a while, so on and so forth. So, but like I feel like in this grand scheme of things, it is just about how do we get back to having Wanda in it, and it's not going to be something that's going to happen like with a light switch. Like this show isn't going to give us that or answer that. I think they've made it quite clear that they're not going to do that. But what it can give us is prospect and opportunity to see what could happen. Right?
Correct.
I think if something happens with Agatha, it would be interesting if in wherever she ends up, maybe if she does, like she somehow interacts with Wanda. So I don't know. There's opportunity there. So we'll see. It's cool.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
But that is it for this week's Watch Club for Agatha All Along. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts, if you haven't already. Before we go, Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us on the road again this week. If our listeners would like to learn more about you beyond what they may have seen in some sort of divination, where can they keep up with you?
On the road again. I actually foresaw that I was going to be on the show again way back when. So I actually changed my Instagram and everything to match so that they're all, you can find me anywhere. So on Instagram, on Twitter or X, as well as TikTok, you can find me at The Names Alyssa.
Okay, The Names Alyssa. We'll have that linked.
Twitch, I am twitch.tv/ityourgirl Alyssa, but maybe it'll change. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe
go follow me now so that you know next time.
Just in case. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts or your predictions on the shows we cover in Watch Club, well, let me just predict accurately that Megan is about to tell you how you can reach us.
You can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at wearegeekcentric or on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X.
Oh, yeah.
At geekcentricyt.
Twitter.
Am I right?
Yeah. No, we're all on the Twitter train.
I actually felt myself revolting when I said X. But yes,
we don't need to do it anymore. We'll just call it Twitter. And eventually, maybe that'll change. Maybe that'll go away. Who knows?
I foresee it.
Vine did.
I
don't know.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, listen, we will be back a little bit later next week with our final Watch Club for this series, as we'll be covering episodes 8 and 9, the finale. But in the meantime, you can also chat with us on our Discord spoilers channel, where you can drop all your witchy theories. Go join using the link in our description. And keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in TV shows and more. We've got a ton of reviews out, like The Wild Robot, Transformers 1, HBO's The Penguin, and Only Murders in the Building. We're also going to have our Venom The Last Dance review out very soon. By the time you're listening to it, it might already be out, actually. Maybe I'm gapping in time, and in reality, it's already out. Whoa, crazy. I foresaw it somehow. We also have our D23 episode, where we talk about Disney's D23 Ultimate Fan Event, and where we actually saw Agatha perform live with her coven. We've got a ton of interviews from over the summer, and the one that you're going to want to check out is our interviews with Agatha All Along herself. Agatha herself, Catherine Hahn is what I'm trying to say. And Joe Locke, who plays Billy, or Wiccan, and showrunner, director, and executive producer, seemingly right now at least, the GOAT, Jack Schaefer. And we talked about the music in this series. We talked about how it keeps the tone of WandaVision, but it's holistically its own thing. And we asked Catherine and Joe who they'd want their characters to team up with for a Marvel Broadway musical. So you can catch that interview, all those interviews, on your podcast service of choice, or over on YouTube at youtube.com/Geekcentric. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. You can keep up with all the cozy geek fall stuff we got, the spooky geek fall stuff we got. And as we move into the ho geek holiday, I don't know if that's what we're going with. But listen, my lovely coven, Alyssa, Megan, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this Witch Club. And as we say, follow me, my friend.
To glory at the
end. Oh my God. I was like, I have to remove my headphones because I can't.
I really want to hear this one. I really want to hear this one.
Gotta get it right. Yeah.
To glory. No, I'm kidding.